Hello everyone, this is a pre-recorded lecture video for the topic African Literature, Analysis of African Poetry as a Cry for Social Justice. Now at the end of this lesson, you are expected to show exemplary knowledge in dissecting and in analyzing poetry written by African poets. Now last time I gave you a reading material which highlighted African diaspora, slave trade, and oppression. Those were some of the struggles that the African experienced. However, amid all of these, they have lived with very rich oral tradition, which come in different forms, such as folk tales, myths, epics, riddles, poetry, so much more. Now, Africa, during the 19th and 20th centuries, they have developed a written literature during these times. This development came as a result of missionaries who came to Africa to build churches and language schools in order to translate religious texts. So since the early 19th century, writers from Western Africa have used newspapers to air their views. Examples are the French-speaking Africans led by Leopold Singhor and together with Leon Damas and Amy Ciceri. They were active in the Negritude Movement from the 1930s, and their poetry not only denounced colonialism, it proudly asserted the validity of the cultures that the colonials had tried to crush. Now, what do we mean by Negritude Movement? Negritude Movement was a literary movement of the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s that began among French-speaking African and Caribbean writers living in Paris. It was a protest against French colonial rule and the policy of assimilation. Now, what is assimilation? Assimilation was one ideological basis of French colonial policy in the 19th and 20th centuries. In contrast with the British imperial policy, the French taught their subjects that when the Africans would adapt French language and culture, they would eventually become French. Now, Leopold Singhor was very well known during that time because he was Senegal's first president. He is also a poet, a statesman, and a teacher. He is a great factor in the Negritude Movement, a literary movement against the French colonial rule, and he stands as a voice against the abuse of the African people. Now here is a poem written by Leopold Singhor that we will be analyzing. It's entitled Assassinations, written by Leopold Singhor. Let me read it to you. We lie there stretched out by the captive roads, along the roads of disaster, the lean poplars, the statues of the dark gods, draped in their long gold coats, Senegalese prisoners miserably lying on the French land. In vain they cut your laughter, in vain the blacker the flower, the blacker your flesh. You are the flower of beauty among the first absence nude flowers. Black flower blossom and its somber smile, diamond of a time immemorial. You are the mud and plasma of the world's leafy spring. From the primitive couple, you are the flesh of the womb, the belly fertilizing milt. You are the sacred profusion of bright, blissful gardens, and the sovereign forest, victorious of fire and lightning. The vast song of your blood will defeat machines and cannons. Your speech throbbing deceptions and lies. No hate in your soul. You are not hateful, no cunning soul without cunning. O black martyrs, immortal race, let me say the words that forgive. Now, here's Leopold Singhor's Assassinations. And this time, we will be analyzing this poem. But before that, let us first discuss the steps on how to analyze a poem. Now, when analyzing a poem, it is important to remember that poems convey a message. Poets will try to use creative and lyrical language to express their emotions and opinions on a given subject. So, to be able to easily understand a poem, one must know what the poem is about. Now, here are the simple ways to analyze a poem. You have to focus on the title, the speaker. You also have to paraphrase. You also have to take note of the tone and the mood. And you also have to know the theme of the poem. Now let's start with the title. The easiest way to understand and analyze a poem is by understanding and finding the general topic through its title. So here are some guide questions. Does the title give you a visual image? Are the words used positive or negative? Is it lengthy or simple? So those are the words that could guide you in analyzing the title. The second one is the speaker. If the title is vague, you can move towards the speaker. And how do we analyze the speaker? So who is talking? Can you visualize an old person or a child? What is the social status of this person? With the help of the phrases, can you imagine how the person looks like? So that's how you could be able to analyze the speaker of the poem. Let's have the third one, the tone and mood. So once you have a general view of what the poem is about through the title and the speaker, try to get the mood and tone of the phrases. So some poems may seem like it's grieving and others may seem like it's singing or joyful. So you have to take note on these questions. Are the words used positive, meaning happy words, or negative, violent, sad words? Does the scenarios in each phrase show love, happiness, or lamentation? So that's for the tone. So you really have to identify the tone. Does it show happy words or sad words? Next one is you paraphrase. Okay? So paraphrasing is a great way to analyze any work of literature. So to be able to paraphrase, one must have a dictionary because there are some terms that are complex. Paraphrasing means to simplify complicated phrases. Paraphrasing poetry does not mean getting the literal phrase, rather it is dissecting the words and phrases to find a deeper meaning. Now let's have this example. Okay? You are the sacred profusion of bright, blissful gardens. Okay, so this is based on the poem cited from the poem Assassinations. Okay, you are the sacred profession of bright, blissful gardens. Now, what are the key phrases or the words that we have here? Let's identify. We have here sacred, profession, bright, blissful gardens. Okay, you have to take note that these key phrases and words depict a positive tone due to the positive words used. Sacred, connected to gods or religion. Profession, a large quantity. Blissful, extremely happy. Garden, a place with flowers and plants. So take note that this depicts a positive tone. So let's try to paraphrase this one. You are the sacred profession of bright, blissful gardens. So you are bursting with angelic beauty and joy. And what does this line mean? So this means that it shows that a person the speaker is addressing is an object of beauty and all things positive in large quantities. So that's how you are going to paraphrase. Okay? So that's for paraphrasing the poem. And lastly, we have the theme. The last of the list is the theme. So to be able to get the theme of the poem, you need to check all of your analysis. So the theme may be an issue, a universal fact, or a conflict. Now here are the guide questions. What is the poem talking about? Who is speaking in the poem? What type of situation is the poem trying to show its readers? How do you, as a reader, feel when reading the poem? Okay? So those are the guide questions that could help you examine the theme of the poem. Now you have to take note that the theme may be one general word, say for example, love, truth, freedom, or it may be a phrase, say for example, obsession over power, a cry for help. So it can be a general word or it can be a phrase as well. Okay, so those are the steps in analyzing a poem. Now let's go back to Assassinations by Leopold Singhor. Let's analyze it one by one. The title, Assassinations. What do we mean by assassinations? So what do we mean by assassinations? We have here violence or murder. We also have here the speaker. So a speaker, the speaker is a man recalling the pains of his ancestors or African slaves. And we also have here the tone and the mood. It's filled with sadness and negativity. Now let's try to paraphrase each of the lines of the poem. Let's start. First phrase. They lie there stretched out by the captive roads along the roads of disaster. So they here refers to the bodies of the African slaves lie down on the road. Why would they be lying down on the road? Okay, so this means death. The second phrase. The lean poplars, the statues of the dark gods draped in their long gold coats. Poplars are trees common in North America, so they usually have a golden color to it as its leaves are sometimes yellow. So here's a picture of it. So the poplars in the phrase are likened to gods in their gold coats. They're yellow leaves. So the adjective dark shows negativity or like death. Let's continue. Senegalese prisoners miserably lying on the French land. Lying. So most probably dead or dying. Miserably, meaning miserable or sad. In vain they cut your laughter. In vain the blacker the flower, the blacker your flesh. You are the flower of beauty among the first absence. Nude flowers, black flower blossom, and somber smile. Diamond of a time immemorial. So the line, they cut your laughter. What do you mean by laughter? Laughter is a depiction of joy. And if they are cut, that means these oppressors took away the happiness of these slaves. Now, what do we mean by nude flowers? Nude flowers, these are the slaves. Okay, slaves were mostly unclothed or not properly dressed, or sometimes naked. Somber, gloomy, or serious. Diamond of a time. Diamonds are, okay, unbreakable. Immemorial. Okay. You are the mud and plasma of the world's leafy spring. From the primitive couple, you are the flesh of the womb, the belly fertilizing milk. You are the sacred profession of bright, blissful gardens, the sovereign forest victorious of fire and lightning. So mud and plasma that creates leafy spring. This means symbolizes life, symbol of life. Flesh of the womb, belly fertilizing milk. This means semen, okay? Semen, okay? Symbols of life. Sovereign, royal, they are strong forests that survive both fires, forest fires and lightning, most probably storm. Last part. The vast song of your blood will defeat machines and cannons, your speech throbbing deceptions and lies. No hate in your soul, you are not hateful, no cunning soul without cunning. So in here, the blood, it's a symbol for that. It's a literal meaning as they are abused, and the extent of their abuse equates to the strength that can defeat machines and cannons. However, these slaves do not have hate nor cunning. And the last part, O black martyrs, immortal race, let me say the words that forgive. Martyrs here is a person, okay, who is killed for their beliefs. And the words that forgive shows a sign of sadness and bittersweet peacefulness. So that's how you are going to paraphrase a poem line by line or stanza by stanza. Okay, that's for paraphrasing. Now, what about the theme of the poem? So the theme of the poem, African slave murders and oppression. So that's how you are going to analyze a poem. So these are the steps and how you will analyze a poem. So good job for that one. Now, aside from African diaspora, slave trade, another word associated to Africa is apartheid. What is apartheid? Apartness. Apartheid is an ideology that was introduced in South Africa in 1948. This called for the separate development of different racial groups in South Africa. It called for equal development and freedom of cultural expression, but the way it was implemented made this impossible. Why is this so? Why is it that the way it was implemented was impossible? It made laws that forced the different racial groups to live separately and develop separately and grossly unequally too. So it tried to stop all intermarriage and social integration between racial groups. Now, in South Africa, the horrors of apartheid have, until the present, dominated the literature. So the works, okay, some of the literary works portray apartheid or experience. Now, here's what I want you to do to analyze Tatamkulu Africa's poem, Nothing's Changed. This poem is about a poor area of Cape Town in South Africa called District 6. So it was a slum where black people lived, but in 1966 it was bulldozed and never properly rebuilt. Now, I want you to analyze this poem, okay? Nothing's Changed by Tatamkulu Africa. I want you to practice, okay? You have learned already how to analyze, okay, the simple steps in analyzing a poem. Now we are going to practice what you have learned, okay? Let's practice how to simplify or paraphrase the poem written by Tatamkulu Africa entitled Nothing's Changed. So a worksheet file will be posted in Google Classroom in a while, so kindly wait. And if you have questions about my discussion, kindly message me directly via Messenger. So that would be all. Thank you and God bless you.